That's fine with me.
Yeah,
That was just right off. That was
Suggesting
the
that for
one
the rest of the
thing.
hearing.
Is that a motion to?
And
approve the
then
minutes?
I would
Never
make,
mind.
the one thing I would make, and I don't know if we should make it in this minutes to adjust it or whether we want to adjust it. I did get that the citizens warrant articles, I believe, are due November 18th and begin October 15th. And I can check that right here.
Yeah, this says November 1 for the deadline.
Right, but I got an updated thing on that for the annual town meeting timeline, and citizens warrants for October 3rd to November 18th.
But
So I didn't know whether to put them in here or put them in the new minutes.
I
You
think
see
the
what I
new
mean?
minutes, if this is what
Okay.
we said at the meeting, why don't
Mhm.
we leave
Yeah,
it
that's
as
fine.
Just
it
saying.
is, and we can add it as an item for
Update.
today's
Okay.
minutes.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think that now is open. I think that your comment was in relation to the airport commission.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be me because I don't know enough about any of those issues.
Okay.
I think, Rick, were you going to talk with
With who?
the airport?
I
People-
did talk to Mr. Drake. I'll be happy to report on that at some point, but
So I think someone did say it, I just
Okay.
don't think it was more. Because that's
why
way
don't
over
we
my
put
head.
my name in there, because
Yeah,
I
it's-
did agree to talk to the chairman of the airport commission.
So that,
And I'm just gonna move that sentence up
mhm.
to be right after the John thinks it would be beneficial to invite the airport commission.
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect,
Okay.
great.
Okay. With that in mind, is there a motion to?
I move to approve the
As
minutes
amended?
of September 9th, 2019 as amended.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
I'm just abstaining, is that what you're saying?
Understood, yeah.
Sorry, bother you guys.
Thank you. It's all right. Thank you. Okay, so why don't we move on to sort of the meat of our discussion today, and that's at the last meeting we decided that it would be prudent to review and make recommendations on a couple of our items we've been reviewing, just so we can sort of put those to rest, so to speak. So the first item that we have is warrant article 76 from the 2019 annual town meeting. This was colloquially the Teresa Williams warrant article for creating a commission that reviews
Ombudsman thing, right?
yes,
Like
sort of
complaint
like a complaints committee, and or even not a complaints committee. It's a board that oversees any type of complaints and has the ability to overrule town employees and other adjudicatory boards.
That was not passed, right?
That was, I believe, referred to us at some
tabled.
point, and it was tabled, and there were a number of, I think, issues with it, both procedurally and substantively. And so, although we have not been asked again, or no one's followed up with us to opine on it, I think it does make sense to formally give our opinion and recommendation on the warrant article and sort of the whole and the concept as a whole of this type of committee.
So
this
versus an opinion, isn't this where you talked to town council and they gave you some information?
Were you on board? Were you on the board
I
of the
wasn't,
committee
but
at
I'm
the
trying
time?
to, it was right after that, so I'm just trying to think
Okay.
of what you guys have been saying about that. And I thought perhaps town council had chimed in as to
The short version is it's
not
fraught
recommended.
with problems, yeah.
Right.
Unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Is the challenge.
Well, I at one point I drafted a motion or a resolution for this board, and we might want to make sure we incorporate, at least I think it would be helpful to incorporate roughly the things we did and the people we listened to. Because eventually I would expect Teresa or someone else would come back and ask us, because town meeting did formally request us, I think twice actually, because it was an article at 2 different town meetings. And I think we should be prepared, if we're all in agreement, to pass a resolution, and I'd be happy to find that again, that says something like the board interviewed Lauren Goldberg, town council, and the proponent of the article, Teresa Williams, and 3 other people at 2 different meetings, and after considering their comments, decided that it doesn't make sense to move forward with adopting any kind of change to the charter or the bylaws to incorporate the intent of the article, or something like that.
That sounds,
I think that makes
that
sense.
sounds more to the point of what we're addressing, the bylaws and the charter. That doesn't mean, however, that someone such as Teresa or, you know, or another individual is not in need of some level of mediation on her issues or something like that. But I don't think that those things are addressed
I think
here.
that I don't know if we want to get into that necessarily in what we're recommending, but I think with Rick's resolution, I think we talked, if I'm remembering it right, I think we had talked about maybe, you know, also promoting you know, making people better aware of the different avenues perhaps to resolving these types of issues, sort of in that education vein in general that we seem to be gravitating toward. So, you know, something along those lines.
Well, do you want to have a resolution that has a part A and a part B?
Yeah.
I must admit, I'm reluctant to have all these, I mean, you have to figure out how to phrase that.
Yes,
Tucker.
right.
So apparently you might want to say something like the Town Government Study Committee requests that the select board, Christie, direct the town manager to have a better communications opportunity for all the citizens, and she implements saying, thank you. I mean, is that something to that effect?
I don't know what the right answer is, but yeah, something, so it's not, I think for, like, you know, putting myself in a Teresa Williams position, that it's not simply, okay, we looked at it carefully and no, but we looked at it carefully and this isn't the right avenue, but this is where things might get to be improved. Yeah.
I'm just, since we're sort of debating or discussing,
absolutely,
I'm not sure, because I can sense that often we might want to say that in everything we do, because I've heard lots of comments by the committee members about education, and the select board and the town administration ought to be better communicators on a number of issues. I think in this case, for example, Teresa Williams followed a prescribed procedure already embedded in the school committee's methods of dealing with her specific problem. And I'm not really aware that we or the school committee needs to better communicate that specific problem, which I think has to do with special needs students, because it is already there. You may disagree with that, but I don't know that I think that's a charge we need to make. Those folks are free to communicate it based on the issues that Teresa has raised and make their own managerial judgment. Otherwise, we're going to be doing this over and over and over again. So I'm just a little concerned about that.
Kind of what I've written up as a question, that this would be Rick if he wants to put it forward. The Town Government Study Committee interviewed Lauren Goldberg from Town Council, Teresa Williams, the proponent of the warrant article, and after discussion, I should say the committee moves to not recommend the addition of this committee in the town charter. The Town Government Study Committee does recommend that the Select Board direct the town manager to examine the process of how complaints are handled the methods of dealing with complaints has failed the citizens and should seek improvements.
Because I think to your point, the school board obviously has, or the school committee or what have you, they have a process, but it's like she hit her head on the top of the process and never got out of that moment. And there should be a way, I mean, honestly, having been in education for 15 years, there's definitely a way to have this addressed. So I feel like there was a step that, you know, once you reach this point, there, you know, you should have.
Yeah,
But that's
she
the
did.
school
She's
committee. I'm just
free to
saying
go.
that that's
She was.
them.
I think. You know, we have to go back and listen to the record, but I think Lauren or others would make it clear that she does have recourse to go to court, for example, because she got to the top of the town's decision-making processes. And if we're saying that's not enough and she needs another outlet within the town, if that's what you're suggesting, that's one thing. I think that may be, I'm not sure what people are suggesting. I think it was over at that
No,
point.
I totally understand what you have laid out as your position.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to challenge your position, and I'm not trying to add to the motion. I'm just saying in general, you're gonna come out from the committee with a do-nothing situation other than a recommendation for improvement, right? So that's fine for the charter and the bylaws. I don't think that that's going to be satisfactory
Well, her
to
problem
the
is she didn't like
situation in
the
the
answer,
future.
so she wants us to create a new way to get a different answer.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
not our job.
Right.
So, and I think, do we want to add Michael Pearson as one of the people?
Yeah,
who
I think
talked
I
on
had
this?
2 or 3
Yeah,
people when I
yeah,
drafted
yeah,
this originally,
Yeah,
who
Probably-
came to our meeting
yeah.
and are on the tape and all participated that day. And I think
it was Clifford and Michael, I believe, were the other
Yeah.
two in particular.
Do you want to name them in the motion or just say another public comments?
I think we could find the date of the meeting and refer to the date of the meeting so anybody interested could, for example, Teresa or others, would know the date we had the discussion. I just think that's helpful. So that's
Okay. So with that in mind,
Do we need the dates before we make a motion?
oh, I know I had this date at some point.
it was like in June. I don't remember.
It was right after town meeting.
I
It
wouldn't
was.
get to the date unless you,
I'm just saying, can we make a motion if we want to add the date into the motion? We need the dates before we make the motion.
I think we can have a motion that adds the date. It says that we will add the date when we find the correct date.
The specifics
Date
of
to
it.
be
Yeah.
in-
To be included. To be included.
You don't have to,
Yeah.
just when it's done, then it gets, that will be in the minutes, the text of that, and that will be, when it's approved in the minutes, we'll be approving the full text of the.
Now, just a quick question of procedure. Once we make this motion, make this recommendation, etc., I assume somebody else will want to be aware of it because town meeting did refer it to us. Should we circulate it to
I think-
finance and town admin,
I
or?
think we would send it, I think this came from town meeting,
Yep.
and we would send it back to the moderator,
Interesting.
is my
Okay.
sense, because she's sort of responsible for town meeting output. If she wants to report back to town meeting, that's up to her, because the town meeting passed whatever they passed, and they might expect a response. I don't know. That's up to the moderator. But I think then we would have transmitted our judgment on the matter back to the appropriate person. And you might have a CC to the chairman of the board, of the select board,
Okay.
and the town manager.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because Libby's the one that emailed it to us, so Libby should be
I-
emailed back.
Yeah.
And I'll check with Sarah too. That's
I
fine.
think that's an excellent
Yeah.
suggestion, that to make sure the town moderator
Yeah.
is in the loop.
Smart idea.
And I like the other two CCs.
Okay. Okay, with that in mind, is there a motion for this recommendation?
Well, is there a reason we need to finalize the language today?
No, I think it would be helpful to get the language
Yeah.
in front of us.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
we can
Yeah.
use what Christie wrote and we can.
We
check
can,
what I wrote
we can
before.
wordsmith it like looking through a decision,
Right.
you know, circulating a
Right.
decision. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So we're not gonna vote.
So we will. So
But
we
hold
will.
that
We will.
motion.
We will not vote, but
But I think we're voting to
Proceed.
Proceed.
proceed. We're all in
Okay.
favor of not
Subject to
recommending.
final wording
Yeah.
okay.
and dates.
Okay. So we are making a motion on the conceptual recommendation,
Right. And-
wordsmithing to follow.
And I'm willing to go along on the education bit, but I just,
Okay.
I'm not gonna, at some point, I'm gonna object to saying that if we're gonna say it on virtually everything we do.
Understood.
Otherwise, it's just patter, you know? And if you really knew what you wanted the people to, how they're supposed to educate or a process you wanted them to adopt, then we could add that. That would be more specific. I think just saying, please communicate better is not always gonna result in results, quite frankly. So,
Ironically, a lack of communication.
So, I mean, it just feels like there's a consensus that we want to be going down this road.
Yep.
I don't know if we need to vote on anything at this point until we have the final.
that's fine.
proposed wording.
That's fine. So what we will do is we will wordsmith.
Can we have it for the next meeting, which is the 30th?
30th. I don't see why not. I think we're mostly there with the language anyway. So
And you'll check the dates.
we'll be set for the 30th. Good for us, right? Okay. So the next item would be the creation of an audit committee.
What do we have that audits or looks at finance?
Yeah, let me just second, because this was sort of, I think I probably started this. It's not the creation of the
Okay.
committee. The discussion we had that I raised, and we circulated early on samples of 3 or 4 other audit committee charges by different towns. And we have an audit committee established in our bylaws or charter, I forget which one it is. And I was recommending, and now it has 3 members, the chairman of the finance committee, the chairman of the select board, and 1 other member of the select board, selected by the select board.
Well, that's an internal committee. You don't have any external people taking a look at you.
Right. And my recommendation, when we talked about it before, was to expand the committee member to include 2 public citizen appointees, so it would become a 5-member committee instead of a
Absolutely.
3-member
You've
committee.
got to
And that
have
would
an
be our,
outside view.
And so the question would be appointed by whom? Would it be appointed by town manager, or are we looking for finance or somebody else?
you know, I don't know that I mind, quite frankly, because usually the process is likely to be similar, whether it's the finance committee or the moderator, which is another option, or the select board. I mean, the select board has a process set up, they accept applications, you sort of say who you are, what your experience
It
is, so.
feels like the select board would be the
I think it
natural.
should stay in that track.
And I don't
That's-
have a
that's
problem
fine.
with
System.
that,
Yeah, but I really like adding
Simply raising.
2 outside people.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So,
So is that a motion?
So wait, hold on.
Isn't there a capital committee or something?
Capital
yeah,
Fund
there's a
Committee.
finance committee and there's a capital program committee as well, they're 2 different committees.
No,
And the
no,
audit
right,
committee
I'm
is
just,
separate.
I get that,
Okay,
so I don't need to be stupid all at once, but, I guess what was bothering me was 2 members from the select board. If it's a audit committee that you're looking to get a broad perspective on, no offense.
It's an internal committee that's.
So I was
adding-
just thinking that
That's why
a
we're adding
capital
2
program,
outsiders.
because they work with finances as well, don't they?
I'm not sure where you're going, help me, Campbell, you mean to they
Just
be?
so that you have 2 members of the public, you have a member of the select board, a member of the finance committee, and a member of the capital.
I don't think we need that,
Okay.
that's, at least that's my sense, I mean, you could. But I think right now, it's sort of, there's also, let's be frank, less disturbance by leaving the existing members as
That's true.
So
participating.
you have 3
And
existing, you want to add 2 more.
Yeah.
Two more. And then see how that works, and it can change again if we need to.
Do we need to lay out when those people would be appointed and the terms and all that, or is that going to just be charged to the select board and town manager to decide and implement?
Was that a charter change?
I don't know, I better find out whether it's been chartered or not.
And do other towns have public?
I didn't bring my documents on the audit committee, I'm sorry. So
Well,
we
I'm
could,
not sure
yeah,
how
we
to
could
address
do that later on if you
Whether
want
it
to.
has to be a charter change recommendation, or whether it's just a recommendation for
Right,
us
right.
to
And
go to town meeting to
Yeah.
establish.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether it's a practice of other towns or not, but it's definitely a good governance practice of
Sure.
every
I would-
corporation and organization.
I would think.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
You know, maybe
yeah.
it's best that we recirculate what I sent out.
Sure.
Because it's been a year now, probably.
Yeah.
At,
And we
yeah,
could
at
all
least.
look at it, see what others have done, and we know specifically then whether it's a charter or bylaw,
Sure.
and we could act upon it
Yeah.
next meeting. There's
Well,
no-
I agree. I've just gone through this at St. Paul's, and we have expanded our audit committee so that the internal people aren't auditing themselves.
Makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah.
However we get there, I'd like to see that we
Yeah.
recommend one way or another 2 more people.
Much.
Independent, no, not associated in any way, shape, or form with town government.
Well, that's an interesting point.
Well, someone like one of the bank, Neil Martello would be a perfect candidate for me as an individual, just because he's in the business and,
Yeah.
you know, but, someone like that.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't want another member of town government or town administration
Right.
coming on top.
Right. I think you'd
The
want it as a
only
member of
thing-
the public.
I mean, I agree completely with the small caveat that if Neil happened to serve on some sort of volunteer town board, I wouldn't want him
No.
eliminated as
No.
a consideration.
Well, just to put forward in the Falmouth one, C215, they say no member of the finance committee shall be, or, whatever committee, shall be an employee of the town or hold any other elected or appointed town office, except the office of town meeting member. I mean, so I'm just saying it seems like there's a way that you could write it such that you
That's
would,
subjective.
Yeah.
right, objectively eliminate people without pointing anyone.
I think we'll come back at some meeting, have an agenda to talk about the finance committee and what they've recommended in Falmouth, and what we might consider or not changing our policy to incorporate that kind of limitation on the finance committee or not. So,
Well, in this case, this says creation audit committee. We have an audit committee, so it's expansion or
Reorganization.
remodeling or,
Sure. Okay, so sort of much like 5A with warrant article 76, I think overall we're on the same wavelength on what to do, and so we'll just work on the details
So that
for
will,
the next time.
Rick's write-up will be included before the next meeting, so we can vote on it.
dig that out and send it out with the agenda.
We got 2 weeks, plenty of time. Next one is creation of a sewer committee.
That's now within the health department.
Abstain.
Do you want to do you want to? Might not be a bad idea.
Okay.
Just to, it's a little, yeah.
So I am the sewer committee.
It is. It is a little strange right
The
now.
sewer committee.
So in other words, take it
select
away
board,
from the
where
select
the-
board and have a separate committee?
Like what we did for the Board of Health. Board of Health
Or-
used to be the
or-
select board, and now they're.
And stuff out we just had about it.
Oh, I thought you were updating it.
Oh, I don't know.
You can do either one.
Oh.
I was leaving.
Oh, I thought I had to abstain. Or,
I think. Oh,
You know, we were talking about that. I'm not, I think about that. Usually an abstention comes from a financial interest or other things, and you don't have that. So I'm not sure
I think if you have
that would be
full
necessary.
disclosure of the situation, then you can carry on in discussions, and I don't
Might
think
be
we're
helpful for us to tell-
necessarily
tell
voting anything
why
today.
you like the sewer committee under the select board as opposed to not.
I don't.
Or
like
or
Good, well
not.
then.
More to the point.
Well, just to back out as a public person, I would prefer that there be a separate, even if it goes under the health department
Yeah.
as a sewer committee. One of the reasons for that is my own personal experience recently of a 3-year ongoing nightmare, whereby as a citizen, because of the problems I'm having, I was going to have to go to the select board, right? And that's very intimidating and makes you think, well, maybe I'll just keep suffering
you'd scare the
versus
hell out of them.
publicly having to go and address something that is, I mean, I could go over the situation, but in the end, the ability to extend a permit that lapsed while waiting for a contractor that's been contracted to dig created a double nightmare because there was no one but the select board to go to say, isn't there some way this can be extended, right? And I think that the select board should be a line of last resort, not sort of, well, you're at the end here and the health department can't do anything, the sewer department can't do anything. So now it just seemed very arbitrary that you end up at
I'd
the
like to
select
see a sewer
board.
committee as a subcommittee of the Board of Health, ultimately.
Rick, what were you
I
gonna
think
say?
we need to think through some of the issues here. The Board of Health, when it became a different, the Board of Selectmen or Select Board used to serve as the Board of Health as they serve as the sewer commissioners, and they don't always have separate minutes, but often the board declares they're acting as sewer commissioners, or they're reminded they are. And you have to think through what the duties of each one of those are, and I think they're different and have different considerations. The Board of Health was primarily involved in regulatory issues and public safety issues and restaurant inspections and issuing sewer permits and so on.
And septics,
And septics, yeah.
which is very big.
But it did not, and right now, one of the things we'd have to think about is the sewer commissioners, I believe, help me, Christie, set the rates for the sewer system. And they may even have the power, I'm not sure about this, to incorporate betterments when, if necessary. And if you set up a separate sewer commission, you need to think through whether you want to have that body with that kind of ability to set rates and betterments and so forth, as opposed to the Board of Selectmen. And it's not always clear to me anyway that, because it's a significant part of the tax structure of the town, in effect, that's necessarily a good idea, depending on how the composition of the commissioners are set. If they are appointed, often, this is like I like to think of the, what is it, MWR, anyway, that's the water district outside of Boston. And I think some people have felt that they have an awful lot of authority to set water rates, and the people don't have a lot of recourse. Campbell, just getting back to your point, and recourse to an appointed body is not always as satisfactory as an elected body, where you can say, hey, guy, I can get at you. I can throw you out of office if I get a group of people. So you just have to think through whether that's part of what you're talking about or not.
It's an interesting point. It is. And I guess a good point would be to see what the roles of the sewer commissioners are. You know,
I was just thinking if we could get that before the next meeting.
Is there a charter or a subcommittee assignment or a description of what the sewer commission?
is it David? Is it David Gray? I mean, is he?
He's the department head.
He's a sewer
does he-
department,
but
but
he's not a
he doesn't
commissioner.
set rates.
He's not a,
But does he
He reports
advise
to them.
it?
Reports
Does he
to the
advise
select board.
does he advise the sewer commission?
he doesn't have
He
anything to do with
advises the
enforcement.
rates in the sense they reported in like May or June to us about the suggested rate change
Okay,
and suggested. So they had an outside consultant
interesting. Okay,
do it, and then he reported to the select board on what they found, and then we vote
okay.
on the rates.
As the sewer commission.
Well, that may be something where we should.
Anyway, I think we need to answer these
I
questions.
think you're right. I think
So
we
I think
should.
it might be interesting to separate, like, things like the rates
Mhm.
might stay for the select board, but
Mhm.
more of like the public issues or concerns could be something that was.
I mean, it could
subcommittee.
still be the point of last
Right.
right, but you shouldn't have to just pop in there, because to me, it seemed like I was going to be going in and with people who already have plenty on their plate.
It's interesting. I just give you my experience as a board member, and Christie's may be different, but I know, for example, with people who had problems with building permit penalties, and the building department might say, you didn't file on time, and you get a $20 a day penalty, and it adds up to $9,000, and we're not waiving it. And the party says, how do I appeal that? And it sort of worked its way up through the chain of command, and it got to the town manager, as I recall, and the town manager would support or not the position of the staff. I think this is what I would have expected happened in your case. And then if they weren't satisfied with that, they often, I don't know what often means, they would ask to be on the agenda at the board, and they'd come in and say, hey, here's my problem.
Right.
And we'd spend a half an hour on it. So I don't know how Christie feels, but I would be disappointed as a board member that you felt inhibited if you felt that that last step was something you didn't wish to do. I mean,
Well, by the time I got to hiring a lawyer, I was all set. Because I have been so wronged in this thing. I was like, I'm all ready to do this.
but apparently then the normal
instead,
chain.
I went a different route.
Cameron, you sound like Teresa. She went. You must have gone up to get to the town manager level, I assume, and asked for a waiver or something.
no, 'cause
that
I'm in
people
a-
said no, I guess.
But I'm in an odd position because I am on different commissions and boards, and so I feel like I shouldn't address it. And because there were structural issues in the way my permit was approved, etc., through the entire process, only to find out in the last 3 weeks that whole thing I paid $18,000 for is completely null and void, and that everybody rubber stamped something and they had no idea where the stub was. And it turns out the
Nice.
stub is completely on the opposite side of my property, and I'm now running the sewer through my basement and out the other side.
And the sewer
All I'm-
department didn't know that?
Nobody knew that.
Yeah, it wasn't so
I
much
had
the
to have
specifics I'm
someone come
referring
in
to.
Yeah.
Just talking about the
No, right, no,
process.
but so I'm just saying, so the whole thing was like so out of hand, and I don't like to name names, and
Yeah.
I don't like to, hang
Off
people
record,
up.
you can. That's all right.
Okay,
Well,
anyway, enough of
I
that.
just
Okay.
try not to.
All right, so
anyway.
what's
I'll get a description and we can
And
look at it.
I'll reach out to Libby too. We can
Well,
see what we
that's
can
interesting,
find.
because St. Paul's had a problem with the sewer, and the sewer department came and ran a camera right up and found where the problem was. I don't know why you didn't get service.
Oh, believe me.
Can we,
the
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, can
story's
we not
interesting,
get
but
into
we
Yeah,
don't
let's-
need to go there.
Yeah, I think we're kind of limited on time here.
All right.
So,
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
so. All right, so looks like we went 0 for 3 on recommendations, but hey,
I
that's all
think
right.
we went 2 for 3. We all agree that we
Yeah,
still the first 2. We don't have it.
Right.
That is the silver lining. Yes, that's the glass half full. Okay, so we'll find out more on the sewer committee, and we'll have these on the agenda for next time. For other business, just for what it's worth, I did reach out to Libby, and I asked her about who is sort of sponsoring these warrant articles when we are ready for them. If we are doing them as citizens, Rick pointed out we are to respond to town meeting. Libby's comment and/or suggestion was, well, if you want, it may make sense to give the board an update in, say, October, and see if there are any that they would want to sponsor, because that gives you a little more time a little more flexibility in needing to edit or modify them as opposed to doing citizens articles. So I'll just leave that out there. That's what she said. I don't know that she was really hoping that we were going to come up with any articles necessarily, but that was her two
Right,
cents.
and I don't think this is necessarily either or. I think
Well, that's true too.
I mean, when you read the charge to the committee, like, it comes from town meeting. It doesn't come from the
Right.
board. And usually you think if you go back to, but I think, politically, if you will, and building consensus,
There-
it
I mean,
doesn't
there's-
hurt to get the board involved and see where we are.
Yeah, it may have a little more gravitas coming from the select board than from a citizens article, but neither here nor there, but that is just something to keep in mind, so maybe something to keep in sort of the back of our heads for October to give the board an update.
And since our next meeting's the 30th, why you need to really bring some of these to a head, whether you're gonna.
Yes. Which
So it seems like the warrant article A seems like something that could be, at least the advice on it could be moved forward to the select board, as well as B. We should be able to, if we give ourselves time, we should be able to suss out the 5-member piece
I would think so.
for that. And then C, it sounds like we're still in the workings on that as far as getting some details and trying to create a more specific thing of what way to go with that.
I'm sorry I couldn't be at the last meeting, but so I guess I'm just trying to get caught up a little bit on, is this the sum and substance of what we're planning? No, okay.
No, what we decided at the last meeting was we're gonna start tackling a couple each time.
Got it.
Yep, and just weeding through. We didn't want to bite off more than we could chew.
To show that.
Exactly.
No,
So
no,
back,
right,
actually,
yeah.
I think
just
these
for our
are small
existence.
enough little nits.
Exactly.
To show that we're paying attention.
And we went for the low hanging fruit first. I think.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
To that end,
Exactly.
Thank you. Just want to
Just to be clear, Campbell, as you described that, I think A isn't an article or a warrant article for
No,
town
but
meeting.
it's
It's just a note.
It's a
or
report item.
It's a
Right.
it's a
CC.
report item. I
Yeah,
mean, I
okay.
think that through that we could, if we figure out what we're reporting through that, we should be able to figure out if we're actually, if any of them would require a warrant article of any type.
Okay, gotcha, yeah.
See what I mean?
I
Like,
think B clearly will, because there is an existing
Yeah.
language about an audit committee. If you want
Right.
to change it, you've got to act on it. A doesn't require
Correct.
Mhm.
so.
Correct.
and that could be stated to that effect in the piece
Yeah,
that's
I don't think we
forwarded.
need. I don't.
Okay, so then the only thing I'd like to add is the Park and Rec Commission. Or the Park and Rec something or other, because it is in the charter.
Yep.
It is specifically designated to the select board and specifically not designated to town administration. And I think that we had a gal in here, Emery.
Miss Emery. Yep.
Cheryl.
Yeah.
Emery was in, and I know it's a hot topic around. So it seems like something that would be good to try and
If you want to
get on
compile
our plate.
if you want to compile the information that we have, and so you can bring it to us, that would be
yeah, I
Awesome.
can give you what I have
Okay.
gotten, but it just seems like
it's there. It's lingering, and I'm not sure
it's not gonna go away
quite right.
in that.
So I think to tackle
Looking
that,
at
we
this,
want to make it
we
an
tackle-
agenda item
Yep.
Mhm.
and have the information available to all of us before the meeting.
Yep.
And then we can pick up where we are.
So at the next meeting, and I have to run momentarily.
Like-
'cause I
likewise.
So do we
can't
all.
be, yeah. And so at the next meeting, there are obviously some things where we're following up on today, but then
Yep.
there'll be a new list of topics we're.
I would say at
discuss.
least Park and Rec.
We also have,
And,
we're
well,
gonna
with
have
Park
Dan
and
Drake
Rec-
at
Hold
the
on.
next
Hold on.
meeting.
Okay.
Hold on. What was it?
Dan Drake was gonna be at the next meeting.
So I actually spoke with one of the people at the airport, and they are getting something together to present to us. So I'm not sure Dan's going to make it by 9:30.
Okay.
Would be my sense.
Yeah, and I did talk to Dan directly on that, and he hopes to get us a report that at least John can, as the chair, can review before we take it up as a committee as a whole. So
Right.
they're doing some of their own homework.
Okay.
I'm just thinking, if it seems like we're having half-an-hour meetings, that looking at the sewer committee and the beginning on the park and rec is probably
I think that what we should do
doing.
is vote on the 3 from today at the next meeting.
Right.
And then also add 3 more to discuss.
Okay. We can do that. I mean,
I agree with Campbell, we should not try to truncate these meetings. Let's
I agree.
book an hour and a half or so on our schedules.
Yeah.
So we can ram a little bit.
I think swim lessons will be done by then, so I should have a little more.
Are we gonna stay for the 3 o'clock? I mean, I'm looking at the other
Not-
date and time,
9:30 at 3 o'clock. That's what we said at our last meeting.
and that means we're gonna be willing to stay till 4:30.
Yeah,
Or
or
4.
5, whatever. Yeah.
Or 4.
Yeah,
I mean, I
or
think
least
if we
4.
can get, because otherwise we're not really attending to the.
Well, I apologize that
No,
I
no,
have to do the
this-
swim lessons, and yet here
I got a
we
St.
are.
Paul's meeting.
There you go.
All right.
At 4, right?
So with that in mind, can I have a 9:30 at 3 o'clock for our next meeting, and may I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you all very much.